Привет, Tere, or better to say hello, because this is the first time in this channel's history when we are speaking English. And we have such a great reason for that, because originally all the interviews were conducted in English with the intention of translating them to Russian and Estonian separately. But when it came to the end result, it became so clear and obvious that we have such a well-spoken guest that it's going to be just basically unrespectful to voice them over. We'll let them speak, for you to listen and observe that politics isn't just a man's job. We spoke through all the stereotypes that anyone may harbor. So, my name is Artjom Dmitrijev and I wish you a pleasant viewing. Maris, where are we?
We are in the hall of Tallinn City Council. That's the place where the council members meet to discuss topics that are on the agenda of the city and where we vote.
What's the main goal of the city council?
The city council is basically the parliament of the city. So in a parliamentary democracy, that's the place where elected representatives of the people from different parties discuss issues that need to be decided about the life in the city.
What do you do here?
Right now I'm just sort of still getting acquainted with the procedures, I think, because it's my first season in here. I'm also head of the Committee for Environment and Climate. So my committee also meets here in this hall once a month, and we discuss proposals that will then later come to the big hall for the council to vote on.
How to become a member of a city council?
You have to run for a place in municipal elections, and then depending on where you are in your party election list and how well you do, how many votes you get, you either get elected or not.
As I understand, that was your first elections ever.
Yes.
And you got about 440 votes.
I got 484 votes.
Oh. But anyway, how to get it?
You campaign. But actually, I think it's not really only about the campaign. I saw that sort of from the reflection of my voters, and it's really funny to say this, my voters. A lot what I've done so far has been my campaign.
How does it feel to be a representative of someone?
This is quite awesome. I mean, it's really a humbling feeling, and it's a great responsibility. I mean, it sounds like a cliche. It sounds like a pathetic claim. I was really in awe and so grateful, and I thought, oh my God, all these people trust me, and I mean, can I do this? It's not a question of can I cross the street with a red light. It's a question of how I vote here in the council, what position do I take in certain questions. I really do think about it. I really do think, would my voters expect that? So like when, right after the elections, the question arose, are we going into the coalition? I asked my supporters, what do you think? And mostly the people who replied said, oh yes, of course. So I said, oh gosh, I mean, they really count on me.
Who is your favorite politician of all time?
Of all time?
Of all time.
I thought you're going to ask who's your favorite female politician.
No, not interested.
Not interested. So I don't have an answer for that all time, but maybe then, it will have to be a female politician. I think I must say I'm Angela Merkel. Even though there are, of course, I mean, she was in power for such a long time. There were certainly issues and matters where I disagree with her view, and I'm not a conservative. She's sort of center but still conservative. She has shown this extreme talent and skill to do things that she considers right, regardless of the immediate popularity of these things. And then she came out on the other side as a winner.
Oh my God, I don't know. I really don't know. I like to walk my own way, you know. So I would say I do admire skills and qualities, but I like to more look inside.
In terms of decency, I think Riina Sikkut is at the top. I mean, she has strong empathy and has a skill to talk to people in a way that they feel the empathy, that they understand what she says and what she means. And she doesn't seem to be a cynical political gambler. So I think that's quite decent.
Who is the politician you admire the most?
Last time I guess I said it's Yevgeny Ossinovsky and Riina Sikkut.
You haven't changed your mind.
No, I haven't.
kes on ühiskondlike vastuolude õhutamiseks häbenemata valmis ilkuma holokausti ohvrite kannatustööle.
Ja valimiskastide avamisel oli kastis 291 hääletussedelit, millest 2 oli kehtetud. Ja sedeli antud hääled jagunesid järgmiselt. Lauri Läänemets 156 häält ja Riina Sikkut 133.
You ran as a head of Social Democrats a few days ago.
I ran for the second time. I lost for the second time. I don't know, I think it's more of a question to the voters, that how much was it because of the different, I don't know, platforms or ideas, but I felt that this time it was better for me than the last time. The last time, 2.5 years ago, there was a lot of that. But you have so little, your children are so small. How can you manage it? Riina, I don't want you to go through this. Can you imagine what they do when you hire the head of the party or whatever? So there was a lot of people who thought that they care about me, so they won't give me the vote. I think this time it wasn't that much about it. So, but the question to the voters why they choose that way.
And last time you got more than Lauri.
No, I didn't.
You didn't?
Yeah, no, I didn't. It was the same situation last time as well. Yeah, but you weren't a member that time, so.
Yes, I was a kid. I was going to the school.
Oh, don't say.
Okay.
What does it say about my age then?
One of the points of your program was parem maailma haridus.
Yeah.
Best education in the world.
No, meil on vaja maailma parimat haridust, kiiret ja õiglast rohepööret ja kahtlemata seda tihedamat sotsiaalset turvavõrku, mis kedagi hätta ei jäta.
But according to some ratings, we already have the best education, school education in Europe.
I would say we have very good test scores, or the best test scores in PISA tests for Estonian kids. But when we look at the mental health issues, how much they enjoy school or other aspects, we don't rank that high. And if we don't rank that high in other issues, we can't keep up with having the best exam scores. And in order to be happy with your life, to want to live, if you want to live in Estonia and do something that makes you use your full potential, you need something else than the best test scores in mathematics or languages or whatever. You need other skills, analytical skills, like this critical reading skills, social skills, teamwork skills. You need the full package. So, and this is what is our challenge.
What's the politician you admire the most?
Oh, well, this is a difficult question. I'm actually very critical. It's difficult to find, for me, to find something that, oh, that's perfect or she's great. I've never been like a fan of a band or musician or something. There's music I enjoy, but it's not taking me over like this. And it's the same with politicians. I think we have great female politicians, whether it's Kersti Kaljurand, the change she made by being the president, Marju Lauristin, Liia Hänni, and Kaja Kallas, Marina Kaljurand, who's excellent. They all have the role and something that we all have something to learn from them.
One person I really admire, and I wouldn't say I admire her because she's a female politician, is Marina Kaljurand, because of her, like purpose, her willingness to work. She's tireless. She's just a great person.
You were an ambassador of Estonia in Russia. In terms of Ukrainian crisis right now, can you tell in which point of history Russia went wrong?
Well, first of all, I've been Estonian foreign minister and I've been Estonian ambassador to 6 countries, Russia among them. I'm not in a position to start evaluating when the mistake was made. But the fact is that what happened in 2007 concerning Estonian cyber attacks, 2008 war in Georgia, 2014 war in Crimea, and the present war, escalation of war with Ukraine, these are all grave mistakes. Whether it went wrong with when Putin came to power, whether it went wrong when he was already in power for some time, it's very difficult for me to judge. But the mistakes were made step by step by step. And one of the reasons why we have Ukrainian war today is exactly the fact that the West did not react strongly enough when Putin was making his first aggressions and when he was trying to see where are the limits and how international community and EU in particular will react. Estonia has been under Russian propaganda since the very beginning of '91 when we regained independence. So for us it is nothing new. It's something with what we have lived now for tens of years. I saw how the propaganda works when I was Estonian ambassador to Russia, and the city of Moscow was covered with my posters. With my photo, I had Hitler mustache, and the poster said «Разыскивается посол фашистского государства». So I've seen in practice how it works. The problem is that I see the problem the way that the Russians in Russia, they do not have many sources where to get information from. They still very much watch TV, they still very much believe in what TV says, they still very much watch the Vremya program. In Estonia, the situation is different. Our Russian-speaking population has also other channels. I understand if they watch Russian TV, and if they listen to Russian news, watch Russian movies, cultural programs, I can say that the Russian movies are sometimes very, very good. But at the same time, they have access to Russian media in Estonia, ETV Plus, Radio 4, which are providing information which are balanced, which do not brainwash, but which urge people to get information, to think about it, and to make their own conclusions. So I think the mistake was made at the beginning of '90s, when we very radically switched off Russian-speaking media. Or not completely switched off, but let's say diminished the outlets, radio and TV channels. And now it takes time to gain again the respect of people and to gain the position where people readily want to watch Russian channels in Estonia. But I'd like to urge everybody to get in Estonia, where we have a free country, where we have free media, to listen to different channels, to have reason when looking at those different channels, to make the real conclusions and not to be victims of propaganda and disinformation.
Lately, Russian TV channels were switched off. What do you think about it?
We are at war. We are at war, and war has different rules. I did not support ban before that, because I thought that people are reasonable and people are smart enough to make their own choices, and sometimes when you ban something, then it becomes even more attractive. And in Estonia, with YouTube, Facebook, all the social media channels, it's easy to follow the same programs via social media and other internet channels. But at war, there's no question. There should not be room for propaganda, and that's why I think it was the right thing to do. And looking into perspective, I'm even ready to say that maybe I was mistaken. Maybe we had to switch it much earlier, when we saw that it was brainwashing also our citizens, our people, when we saw that there was nothing of free media left. It was a tool of propaganda in the hands of Kremlin. So the few open channels that were closed in Russia just recently, Echo Moskva and TV channel Dozhd, they were relatively free. But unfortunately, they were not watched by many Russians, maybe a couple of millions. But taking into account the huge population of Russia, that was just nothing.
Do you have an ambition to become a prime minister one day?
Oh, my daughter asked me, I think a year ago or something like this, to her. I answered, of course, because you don't want to limit the ambition of a child. The sky should be limit for them. But it's not a specific goal I work for. There's so much that you can't predict in politics. I'll do whichever position I am, I'll do the best I can. Now I'm a member of the Financial Committee and the European Affairs Committee, so I put my effort in getting the best results in the Commission work, with the draft laws in the hall, and standing for the values and the interest of my voters.
Currently we have a female prime minister. How do you think? Is she doing her job well?
Well, first of all, I'd say that she serves, of course, as a role model. She's the first woman prime minister we ever had. We had the first president, so these are role models. But for me, maybe not so important is to be the first one, but what will follow after that. It was great to see the previous government to have, not previous government, this government, to have so many women ministers. It's a positive sign because, as I said, it's a role model. As to her role and how she's performing, she has to be judged on equal with men. There is no difference whether she's a woman or not.
It's a bit painful. I mean, I absolutely don't envy her. I think being in this position during three major crises, actually, the pandemic, the energy crisis, and the security crisis, which has sort of not been noticed almost in Estonia, is really, really tough. So before making judgments, I would take a step back and have actually mad respect for doing it, for putting up with that at all. It's not an enviable job.
Well, to start with, I think it's great that we have a woman prime minister. It's already changing the idea of who can be a prime minister. As we have so many things going on at the moment, many critical things, it seems to me that dealing with the pay gap or the equality question, it's not like on top of the priorities. And also the fact that for a while we had also a woman president. I think it really changed like understanding of who can be a decent leader for a country. It might sound weird, but really if kids in the kindergarten are drawing a president as a woman, I think it somehow like they internalize the idea that also a woman can be a leader, and I think it's something that we should teach our children already starting from like really early age. Because I have two sons. And we often have discussions about women's position in the world, or in politics, or in organizations. And as we have never in our family had really the traditional understanding of a family, they don't understand why women, for example, can't be president, or why women can't vote, or it's like for them it's really surprising that in some parts of the world it's actually still the normal way.
Current Prime Minister Kaja Kallas is a female. What do you think about her performance?
Well, I think lately, if it wasn't for her, I think we all would have a very different difficulty to sleep calmly at night. So I think she has done a great job.
I actually now in the crisis or the crisis in Ukraine, I've thought a lot that she would be a great foreign minister, because I think that this is what she really enjoys, and she's really loved and respected also globally. And I'm not sure that Estonia is actually worth her and not ready. And I just have a feeling that she doesn't deserve all that bullshit that she gets also from the members of the parliament.
Ja nüüd üks lisaküsimus, Kalle Grünthal, palun.
Hea Kaja, mul on ainult üks lihtne küsimus, et kus sa lilleke siia said?
Nii, Indrek Saar registreeris küsimuse tervisekriisist, nii et ma saan aru, et...
How does it feel to become a first female prime minister in the whole state's history?
I haven't had time to think about this because it's one crisis after the other, and we just have to, do the work and solve issues and survive day by day. Someone
might say that, look, we have so many females in our current government and we have one crisis after another. Is it somehow linked?
There is, of course, all those crises, those three crises we have, the security crisis that we have due to, Ukraine and Russia. Then we have the health crisis, which is the pandemic, global pandemic. And then we have the global energy crisis. None of those is local. All of them are global. So you can't blame a small government of a small country for that. But it's interesting that you bring this up because, in the feminist literature, there is also talk about the glass gap, or like you are, like when everything is really, really in a bad shape, then you put a woman in the top position and then everything goes downhill. And then you say, look, the woman was guilty for that. There are different examples from the business world about this, but it is that things were already on the edge. But yeah, those crises not due to my government, no.
According to the last study of Statistica Amet, we have around 700,000 women and only around 631,000 men, which means that we basically have more women than men. But on the last parliamentary elections, only 26% of the representatives were women, which means that even beside the fact that we have more women than men, they are still less represented. We have around one representative per 27,000 women, while men have one representative per around 8,400 heads, which means that men are represented 70% better. And actually there is an interesting coincidence. Come with me. As some of you may know that in Estonian parliament, the further right we go, the more right politics are. And same goes with the female amount. For example, on the last parliamentary elections, the most left party, Social Democrats, have around 50% of women in their fraction. Meanwhile, the most right politics from EKRE got only 2 representatives who were female, what was around 11% of their whole fraction. And Isamaa got even less, only one representative who were female, and that was only around 8% of their whole fraction. At the city level, we have pretty much the same situation, because at the latest municipal elections in Tallinn, we have only around 34% of the candidates who were women, and only 30% of them were elected. And we have pretty much an interesting coincidence here, because the EKRE got second best result in the terms of number of female in their fraction. Meanwhile, for example, Social Democrats got only 17% of their fraction who were women. But after some refreshments, it all came to the party politics, because Social Democrats also gained the amount of female, and now they have around 50% of their fraction who are female. And for example, Reform Party lost quite a lot, like almost a half of their female part of their fraction. And interestingly, that after some refreshments, we are now currently have even less women in our local government than it was just after the elections. So we have now less women that were actually elected. Why women do not vote for women?
Yeah, one reason might be the visibility, that women are not just that visible, but the other reason, I'm sure, is that we have this idea or understanding in the society that men are better leaders. That kind of judgment or understanding I really see much around me, which I don't agree.
A very good question. I mean, it has to do with sort of traditional approach. I have a good friend in Narva, an 82-year-old lady, Valentina, who's an absolutely lovely person. I made a film about her, and I talked to her about current politics there. And she said, oh, the team is very weak because, I mean, men need to be there. You know, you need men to do this kind of job.
I think there are stereotypes, because there are still stereotypes in the society that women have to be with kids, that women are too nervous, they can't be trusted. During the crisis time, women are not so maybe determined, not so brave, not so motivated. We have to fight those stereotypes, and if we can change the stereotypes or fight them, and again I come to the point, I believe in role models. And in that sense, Prime Minister Kallas and President Kaljurand, there were role models. That if they can do the job, every girl can do the job. I remember when I was visiting the schools and talking to girls, and when they came after the meeting and told me, now we believe that a woman can be an Estonian foreign minister, that's exactly what I'm talking about. So fighting stereotypes, role models, encouraging, creating conditions, and then it's doable.
There are so many women who think that women just don't belong to the, you know, chairman chair, and that women are not leaders. And maybe this is the reason, because the amount of people with this mindset is just so huge.
About 10 years ago, in one of the interviews, you said that you don't want to be a prime minister because you know that it is very hard work and you just don't want it. That's not so interesting part of the question, but still in short, can I ask you why you changed your mind?
I have never in my life being the one who's putting a position as a goal, and I wasn't in any way naive about the prime minister's position. I knew that it's very difficult, but it just went like this, that I was elected as the chairman of my party, and then we won the elections, and then it's logical that you get to form a government. And I must say, I don't regret it. It has been very interesting, although sometimes tough.
The interesting part of the question is that 10 years ago you said exactly the same thing. I've been asking my guests before you, and I didn't know that you said that. But in the exact same interview you said that our system and parliament and so on are absolutely ready for more female. But the reason, the issue is that women do not vote for women. Yeah. So I guess you're the best guest to answer the question. Yeah. Why?
I think it's better now than it was 10 years ago. I think, I got a lot of votes. I got the most votes the last election. So, there must have been women voting for me as well. But I think it's the perception, as I said before, that if there are few women in the leadership positions or in the prime minister's position, then people don't really think that you're up to it. And if you have this picture that you should have a very low voice or you should be like a bit overweight and then you like look strong, then it's maybe hard in that sense. And it is also, there are studies that people are more critical about women than they are about men and their qualities. Sometimes, I mean, I remember before the elections, I got criticized that, what kind of CV do you have, or do you have enough competence to become a leader? And then I compared my CV to the CV of all the guy chairmen of the different parties. And I've been in private sector for 14 years. I've been in the European Parliament. I've been the partner of 2 law firms. I've also been in the Estonian Parliament running the Economic Affairs Committee, and all the things that are showing in my CV. There were none in those my competitors' CVs, and still they asked me the question, not the guys.
When we look at the members, we have more women than men. Then when we look at the people who run, we still have more women than men, but other parties have more men than women running. But when we look who gets elected, who will be in the local government or the parliament or Estonian government, we go higher and there's less and less women. Partly is due to the inertia or this pathway that in the past we have had more male politicians, that they're well known, they will get more votes. And the next time, and when they get more votes, they will be in the parliament or they will be in the government, and the next time they're even better known.
It is a bit a vicious circle. It has been a vicious circle, meaning that the election lists, the first ones on the list that get a lot of visibility, they're usually the ones who have been ministers. But if the ministers have been men, then all those first numbers are also men. So I think that I'm already changing that. We have half of the ministers are female, and it means that they will be top on the list next time. So there's more visibility. And I think it's the same for other parties as well. So I think it's already changing. What we could do to make it faster, talk about really voting for women. If you have equal candidates, men and women, so maybe you should vote for female if they're equal and you want to have more representation. And definitely for women who haven't voted for women, I would say that nobody understands your interests better than other women. And of course we are not somehow homogeneous group. We are liberals, conservatives, social democrats. You find a candidate that suits your views of the world and your ideology, and then I think the picture will be different as well.
I don't think that we all have to vote only for women because of the gender, no. But if you have equal candidates, a male and a female candidate, I would encourage to give chance to the female candidate. So I think we are overcoming step by step in Estonia, but we need role models and we need parties being role models. Only then we can completely overcome it.
So it's very difficult to change it if you knowingly doesn't change the way you build up your candidate list.
What do you think about striped lists?
Of course, the Social Democrats, they support. We even have our inner agreement that in the parliamentary elections we'll have women and men, they take turns. The first 10 or the first 20 in the general list will also have at least 40-50% section. That we can have some exceptions there, but it at least 40% of one sex and then 60 other.
You know, in Estonian political system, it is very important the placement of the candidates. So in an ideal world, I would say that half of the top candidates should actually be women. And of course, it's when it comes to like quotas, you know, there are some parties in Europe who have tried it out within the party, and it actually does change the whole reality. So it can actually be for a time, if you really want to make a change, this is actually one way of doing it.
I have different opinions. I do not think that Estonian society is ready for quotas. And I would not introduce quotas in Estonian society as we understand classically quotas. But I think that we have to introduce stripy candidate lists, for example, in politics and in parties. I'm a social democrat. And social democrats were the only party in the last elections in 2019 who had in the parliament equal representative of female and male members of parliament. We were the only party that had the equal representation of women and men in the European Parliament. Yes, I'm not happy that the places of the women who have left Riigikogu are now taken by only male candidates. I'm not happy with that. We have to work on that. But I think that stripy lists give a very good example how women can be encouraged and how women can participate more actively in politics. At the same time, I've seen how quotas work in some other countries, in the Nordic countries, but for example also in Rwanda. I've talked to women parliamentarians there, and yes, the first round of women entered parliament via quotas. Second time they already did not need quotas, they were known to the public, so I don't want to say that quotas do not work as such. But for Estonia, my preference is to start with other methods and to start with stripy lists.
Half of your ministers are female, and that's the record in state's history. Was that made on purpose, or what that was just an accident?
Actually, it was not made on purpose. It was because these are competent women. They're competent people. And when we agreed with our coalition partner the division of the posts, then I was thinking that, okay, we got this seat, so, you know, this is a person who could do this work well, and this is, and then it turned out that in my part of the government delegation, there are actually more women than men, and if you consider that the Prime Minister counts for 2 points, then it's actually more.
What do you think about striped candidate lists?
I've tried when I was the first number in local elections, and then my wish and my requirement was that we will have striped lists, but it didn't work because people still voted for the men, even if I pushed the women on the list. So I think it's up to strengthening the candidates so that they are known and people vote for them, but not the positions on the list.
Kaja said exactly the opposite thing this time. She said that they tried it, but it didn't work because people were still voting for men.
I've made the joke that for the Reform Party during the last parliamentary elections, when we look at the number ones, or the who heads the list, there were more Urmases than women. So there was just one woman, Kaja Kallas, who made it great, 20,000 votes and so on. But they had 3 men called Urmas, who were number one in their like the area. So it's not just men, but even men with the same name.
What do you think of a quotas?
As much as I understand, they are a tool, and rather a good tool to introduce the idea of people of different gender being more equal or giving them more possibilities to participate in different fields.
I must say I support quotas because evidence-based, this has led to good results in the Nordics. Companies that have more gender equality in their boards make for better economic results. That's something we have hard evidence for since several decades from the Nordic countries. So why should this not apply everywhere else as well? At least, I mean, I think, and we need to differentiate perhaps. Estonia has quite a lot of companies that are public sector owned, like government or state owned companies. At least the boardrooms of these companies should reflect much more equal spread of the society. We should maybe that would be a first step, not to go there and say regulate that private companies need to do that immediately, but at least for the public sector that would be very, very logical, and there's no reason why it's not happening.
I'm not a supporter of quotas because I feel that it undermines those women who have achieved something, and then it maybe is detrimental to the cause because people would ask that you didn't really earn this, but because you got this because of the quotas, and that's why I'm not really supportive.
10 and 15 years ago I didn't support quotas, but now I do, because I've realized it doesn't change by itself, so we need an instrument. Quotas, I would say it's quite a reasonable thing to do, especially in the public sector. Wherever we look at the management boards or of companies or public companies, no, it's very natural. If we look at 1.3 million people in Estonia, I'm sure we have at least one man and one woman who qualify for a certain position, and so we always have this choice to make. It's very difficult to say that, for example, with Estonian Energy or this type of companies, it's often said that, but we don't have women with this type of qualifications. What type of qualifications do you need? There's someone who knows about electricity. Why would a management board member definitely needs to know about energy or electricity? Maybe we need an environmentalist. Maybe we need a social psychiatrist or something like this that would balance the positions and make the discussion on a board level richer as well.
There is opinion that it discriminates the women who are already there, because it underestimates their possibilities, because everyone will start to say that you didn't deserve it, you just got it because of the quotas.
Whatever position we talk about, in Estonia we have at least one woman who qualifies, and we need to find the woman at least. And usually we have several. So it's not a question of lack of women or missing women who actually are able to fill the position. I don't agree with the logic. It's not meant for finding any woman and make the decision just based on sex, but we have people who have the education, the previous experience, who are able and willing to do the job.
Well, basically what I think is that you could also ask it about men. Too many men get their positions just because they are men, not because of their qualification. That's the situation at the moment. So just because we have the tradition, or it's in the society, it's easier for men to do their career, or it somehow has been agreed that it's normal for men to do to be the person doing the career in the family, and the women more taking care of kids and home in general. So Well, of course, you can ask the question: would more like unqualified or not qualified women get the position when we have the quotas? But I guess that's actually not an argument.
But when we're speaking about the quotas, we always talk about quotas for women. Do we need quotas, for example, for disabled people, for transgender people, for gay people, and so on?
Again, it's a question of defining where and what are the goals. But there are exceptionally great examples of organizations where these have all been implemented. For example, big public media organizations, that the boards of these media organizations really reflect and represent the whole society as such. Or big public cultural organizations. That's a very common approach in many Western European countries, and I would definitely welcome this, because we have an immediate result. A lot of the Estonian public broadcasting program looks like middle-aged white male, and that is a reflection of the structure of the system. So, and the same applies for other spheres of lives.
As a city planning enthusiast, you may know that sometimes the problems in the city are brought by the fact that we have absolutely the same people in the city government who are like middle-aged white men. How do you think, is it important for deputy mayor of city planning to be a woman?
I think yes, because as I told before, really many top-level positions are dominated by male, and as you said, also the decisions or the standards that we have are done by like manly measures. So bringing there just a different point of view makes the city, in my opinion, and not only my opinion, more softer, more engaging, more accessible to different kinds of people. And that's also the reason why we talk about quotas, or why we talk about more women, and actually not only or like different kinds of people, disabled people, being like part of the designing and decision process, because they all have different views, which means that then we also have like the better outcome or better result. That's actually also the reason why they talk, or at least in my opinion, why we talk about the city that should be accessible for ages from 8 to 80, because then we really engage this wide range of people who are daily using the city space.
I don't think it really. I don't think there are requirements for the vice mayor to be of any particular sex. So I think it would be great if all the vice mayors were competent. Yes. I think also Jan Geel, who is one of the pioneers of the human-centered great cityscape and urban planning, he is also a white male, so I wouldn't say it has to do with the sex and age, but of course it has to do with also the experiences of the leaders, the lifestyle, what they think the voters want. And I hope that they are realizing that voters also more and more want something else. Yes.
Why exactly do we need more women? Because like being a woman doesn't make you smarter or better or more empathic. Is it still a good idea?
Yes, it's definitely a good idea. People have different experiences. It's not that much about biology, but the fact that you have experienced different things. And for example, in the parliament, when you make decisions that affect everyone's lives, it's very valuable to have younger people and older people, men and women, people with different levels of education, people with disabilities, because they will get better legislative acts, we get better decisions. The discussion is much richer when we have all these different people asking their questions, expressing their worries, and having their say on how do we run Estonia, how do we agree on things here, and especially when talking about finding balance between work and family life, and making choices in education system, applying for work and certain positions. People have different experiences, and otherwise, even if you have a very empathetic man, it's sometimes it might work, but I still have a feeling that we'll have better discussion and decisions with women included. And it's also a question of democracy. When we have almost 50-50% of men and women in the society, why would we want to keep 50% away from decision-making processes or any other place?
When we talk about Estonia, then we not only need more female politicians, but we also need more Russian-speaking politicians. And I think that, let's say, our parliament should echo or mirror our society.
I think it's just a matter of society has different sexes and society has different views, and I think this the more we have representation for it, I think the better. And I think also in a way, of course, still the experiences can be different, the life experiences can be different, especially now that we still do have so much inequality, stereotypes. So it's even for that, it is important that the diversity is there. But in general, I just think like it just seems very logical to me that if half of the society is basically women. Of course, in Estonia also we have 100 highly educated women for one man, so we should actually take advantage of this kind of education we have given the women. So they should also be able to use it for the good of the society.
As I said, it depends very much on women themselves. We have to create all the conditions that those who want to join politics can do that. We have to support them, but we have to be also very open about what does it mean to be a woman politician. It means that you're being criticized, I don't know, for what you're wearing, how your kids behave. If you work too much, you're a bad mother. If you do not work too much, you're a bad politician. So you have to be ready for those things. But if a woman is ready for being criticized more than men at the moment, and if she wants to be part of the political life, she has to be there, and we have to support her.
Attention please, passenger 10 million. Passenger 10 million.
Is there such thing as a glass ceiling in Estonian politics?
I don't think so. I think I'm a living proof of no glass ceiling existing. In the society we have like 53% of women, whereas in the top positions there's definitely development room for that. Why it is so? I mean, the question is, why don't people see women in the top positions? I don't think that women are somehow better than men or men better than women. We just have different life experiences, and in order to have balanced decisions, you need to have both. But it's a bit maybe harder for people who have only seen men in top positions to get used to also women, being in those positions.
Of course, I do think that most of the ceilings are in people's heads, but on the other hand, there are also elements in very real life when it comes to how we actually in our families divide domestic work. It comes down to like these very practical things. Who is expected in the family to stay home with it when the kids are ill? Are you able to go to evening meetings? Also, how is politics done? Often it is evening meetings. Should it be like that? Or should the evening be for people's private life, family life? So of course there are elements which are more limiting for women, I would say. Also take like harassment in social media, in front of the parliament, private sort of attacks on the person. I think, of course, there are limits, but of course they can also be overcome. And I do think voters do vote for women, so it's not that. I don't think it's like people have like prejudice, but I think often I have found it is not very easy also to convince women to come along and do politics, because it is sometimes a shitty job.
I won't say it's a glass ceiling, but I would say that it's more difficult for women in politics than men. Women are much more criticized. Women have to perform much better. Women are not forgiven the mistakes that male politicians are usually forgiven. So from that perspective, yes, it's much more difficult for women to be active in politics. But I think that the period of glass ceiling, we have overcome that. Because with support, with good networking, you can be a politician in Estonia. Not easy, a woman politician in Estonia. Not easy, but it's doable.
As we have seen during the recent years, we've had a female president and the prime minister. So we have a few people who have managed to break the glass ceiling. But in general, when we look at the share of women in management positions, or whether in private sector or public sector, yes, I would say that there is a glass ceiling. But the situation is better than, I don't know, 10 or 20 years ago, probably.
Why is it so?
It's not in the law. It's not something that, it's not planned, but it's something that naturally happens, something that comes automatically. We don't knowingly discriminate, but for some reason we feel that a certain suit would fill better a certain seat. And when hiring or deciding on salary levels, it's so easy to say that, maybe she has this kind of characteristics, or I prefer this type of person, a man on this position. And it's not objective, it's based on personal preferences that are usually based on something like older stereotypes. So I'm not saying that it's someone tries to be mean, but it just happens. And if you don't knowingly work differently or try to change it, it won't change. So if we continue doing as the same things we do today, it won't change. It changes only if, for example, a company decides that whenever we're looking, for example, for someone for the managing position, we need to have at least one female candidate. Or when we agree on salary levels, we don't differentiate between sexes or something like this. But if person has this type of qualifications, the salary level is whatever, 1,000 euros or 2,000 euros or something like this. We don't negotiate it with people. Whoever asks more receives a larger salary.
What would happen if we would have correct representation in the parliament, for example, and we had half of male and female?
Well, first of all, I think the political culture would change. If you look at the parliament and how people talk to each other, even, I mean, it's different. It's different as well. So that would definitely change.
I think the quality of discussion will change.
Role of the argument would be a little bit bigger.
The discussion will be different. The issues that will come up, and probably the decisions that will be made. So.
I'm really surprised that you all have some same answers. Like everyone is saying like
So this
Simon is the witness of each interview. Everyone says like discussion is going to be different.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It must be the truth. If everyone says that.
I will make a cut. Like I ask the question and like we have 10 answers in a row.
Yeah. This is something we have seen on TV shows for some reason. Before the elections, I somehow remember very clearly we had a couple of shows where we had only female representatives and some with the men, and for some reason in that show at least from the men's show it was mostly shouting and you couldn't even follow the discussion really. Maybe it was due to these persons, of course, so it's maybe you shouldn't like generalize, but I think definitely this would be quite fine for me. I would like it.
I mean, what I've seen in politics is that women are very much in there to get the result and to cooperate, whereas the men are very much into who gets the points for that. So it's more like a fight, and I think as women are more cooperation oriented, then I think you would have better results in terms of policy as well.
What would happen if only female were represented?
That wouldn't be good. I think the balance is a good thing. As I said, we have different life experiences. And in order to have balanced decisions, you need to have both. So I wouldn't recommend the maternal majority, female majority. There has to be both sides.
What would happen if we would have only women represented?
Cat fight. This will never happen. I don't think it will ever happen. I don't know. Very hard to say. I can't imagine this version. I mean, it's interesting that you ask it, because the opposite situation has been very normal for a very long time. So, we have 100 years of male-only parliaments, and then to imagine this vice versa blows one's mind. So that's quite telling already.
I've never thought of that. I mean, if we would have had more women starting from 30 years ago, I'm sure that we wouldn't spend half the sum to social care compared to the EU average level. When we talk about children with special needs, we as a society, we spend a little. We don't prioritize. We don't see as something that we need to solve collectively or that we should come to help. We see it as a personal worry of each family. And it's not that 30 years of too little women in the decision-making positions, and we have very low tax burden and very low spending on areas that actually are, I would say, very, very crucial to describe the level of general care in the society, or general usaldus, trust, the level of trust in society.
What would happen if only female were represented?
Wow, this is interesting. Well, I hope that doesn't happen either, actually. I think that would also be, that would not be fair. Yes.
What we should do to encourage more female to run, because like most of them are not just interested in it.
In the ranks of social democrats, I would say, I might be wrong, but it was 55% of women and 45% of men. So we differed a bit from the national average, but I think it was like 10 years ago or something. In the party, we surveyed members and asked, what's your reason to come to politics? Do you plan to run? What's your motivation? What do you want to change? And what came out very interestingly was that for men, it was like a career path, or they saw it's an opportunity to have an impact. It's a next step in their career. And women came to politics to change something. Was it the issues with the local school or public transport? They had something that affected their life or their children's life, and they wanted to change it.
Women are very much in there to get the results and to cooperate, whereas the men are very much into who gets the points for that. So it's more like a fight.
So, and that's a very different motivation. So when you want to bring more women into politics, so this is something that should be explained. This is your opportunity to change something, whether it's in social care or education or economics, whatever is the topic that interests you or worries you. This is the way. And for men, it's probably that it's your chance to advance your career or something like this.
Was that somehow public information about this research?
I've shared it, and we've discussed it in the Social Democratic Party, but I don't think it differs a lot. It might be the same situation in other parties as well.
Yes, because it's interesting, because Kaja said absolutely exactly the same thing.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. She said exactly the same thing, that men came for the career and women came for the result.
So, and I think it's the same in other countries as well. It's something that differentiates, and you need to take this into account. And in the private sector as well, how do you motivate your workers? And so for men it might be the pay, for women it's something else.
I don't think it is that they are not interested. At least in my experience, I think more it is about the perception that there is so much negativity in politics. For some reason, our schools have also, maybe also our culture has made females very high achieving. They always want to be very perfect, and if we have this kind of view that as a politician, you only have to be like this kind of top human being, ideal, with no faults, So for many women, I think just they feel oh my God, I can't do this, there is no chance to fail there. But actually, how do good business people go to work every day? They go to work thinking, what can I learn, I don't think they go to work thinking I can't fail today. So I think this is something that this kind of harsh judging, maybe even some kind of lack of humanity or this lot of negativity. I think this is also respect, just purely human decent behavior and respect. Also, of course, in the parliament, I must say we have parliament members who have also created and helped this culture to become like this. So it's of course not only just up to voters, it's also up to us. How do we act?
I don't think that we have to force those to go to politics who really do not want. Every woman has the right to find her place. If somebody wants to be active on local level, if somebody wants to be active in local community, if somebody wants to be at home and raise kids, that's the right. And we have to support all those rights. And participating in politics, it's not only being elected, it's not only being prime minister or minister. Participating in politics is our everyday life. It's going to vote, it's talking to politicians, it's writing, talking about political topics. So you can participate in politics in all levels, in different forms. And I would argue that everybody anyway participates in politics on a daily basis. When we talk about kindergartens, when we talk about salaries, when we talk about education, everything is politics. But if women are ready to go to the top of politics, they have to be encouraged. If they want to stay at home and raise kids, they also have to be praised and encouraged.
I guess, because we are a parliamentary democracy, it starts with the parties. So the parties themselves need to define this as a goal. And I think the Social Democrats really have done that. It has been in the debate for a long time. So in most elections, we have the so-called Stripe B election lists. Whereas in some cases, perhaps it would make more sense or make for a better result to have actually 3 women as top candidates instead of a stripy list, meaning male, female, male, female. So that's where it starts, and a lot of support, I guess, from the party network. But then the decision for everyone else on an individual level to decide, oh, I'm going to go into politics, that's a much harder question.
But is it possible that we have such a high quality of female representatives because only specials are going there right now?
No, it is true that considering what is going on in the political sphere and how unpleasant it has become, I think it takes a lot of guts for women to enter into politics. So those who are already there, I think they're good people and strong women, definitely.
Actually, I think it's a wider problem that people don't want to go to politics because they think that politics is dirty and politics is not a way to change things. And I think that's actually the thing we need to change, is to make politics great again, to bring the understanding, or like to talk about that actually almost everything is politics. I really enjoyed how my colleague Maris Kaljurand once asked me that because Elav Tänav was we said that we are like a political organization because we want to change a thing. And then she asked me that, how can you say that you're apolitical? It's like, it's only about politics. And then we said that, yes, actually you're right. So we are like not apolitical, but we are a pan-political organization.
Isn't politics a dirty place?
I'm quite new in politics, but I wouldn't say that politics is much dirtier than other fields of life.
How would you describe feminism? What is it, in your opinion?
I consider myself a feminist, and someone who thinks that men and women are equal, and in the past there has been injustice towards women. It still is, and it should be changed. We'll have a better society, more equal society, and different decisions when we have this gender equality.
Equal rights. I think that word is just so tainted with all sorts of different. So for me, it's about equal rights. Just respect for the human being and her capacities, her skills, her talent, and not the sex.
Well, feminism is a historical movement and has very many phases. So when we look back into the history, then feminism has meant so many different things, starting from just giving what now seems basic rights for everybody. Let it be voting, let it be owning a personal bank account and a bank card, or having the opportunity to work wherever and whenever you want. Feminism nowadays is still about equal rights for everybody. So I think that when we talk about feminism or when we talk about LGBT plus rights, then we actually talk about the rights of every single human being. So it's about protecting everybody and caring about everybody.
Feminism is about equal opportunities.
But someone may say that in the law, from the perspective of law, we have equal rights. What do you mean by equal rights?
In reality, and it's about actually. There is a saying that culture eats strategy for breakfast. I think culture also eats law for breakfast. You know, the culture is the important thing. Law, does it come before or after the culture? Sometimes one way, sometimes the other way. But of course, in a way, the culture is more real, almost.
But what was your driving point when you decided that you want to go into politics? Because again, you came here from the private sector.
When you work in law, you see a lot of things that are maybe not correct in the society that you want to, you see that it could be better. And then it's logical that, you know, when you're a lawyer, you just give advice to people and they decide. But then it's a logical step that you want to go to deciding yourself, and that was a logical step. But it took me 2 years from the point where I was thinking that I might go to politics until I finally went. It's a big decision.
Politics has always interested me. Also, I have this mindset that, you know, if something is bothering you, then instead of being a bitch about it, then make a step, make a move, go say something, do something, you know, be the change. I actually hope that my decision to enter politics inspires other 30-year-old people to do so as well, because it is our time to do it. Because we are the next generation who has to take over the country, and we have to become responsible. And our generation can't only walk around, ask for things, and then decide to go to live abroad because the life here isn't good enough for us. I think that we can be the designers of the future of Estonia, and we have to do it.
3 years ago, gosh. The change happened 3 years ago when, after the last parliamentary elections, the far right got into the government, when Ratas made a deal with them. And for me, that was sort of a reawakening of my political spring, if you like. Because then everyone was like really disturbed by it, and people were couldn't believe this happening, and were writing on social media and lamenting. And somehow I had this reflection back to the 90s or late 80s, when we started to have the first sort of public protests about the phosphorate issues and so on. We need to be there. We need to be on the streets. And I think if you make the step to go out on the street, that's politics, right? That's as much politics as it can get. Because what we saw at that time was, when they started the coalition negotiations, it was very, very well planned tactically. We saw daily pictures of these horrible guys in the black hats walking into Stenbocki Maja, which is the seat of the government. They looked like men who know what they're doing, that they belong there. And of course, Ratas held these meetings in the Stenbocki Maja in order to make everyone feel, oh, we like that place. We want to have a deal. We want to make the deal. And coming from journalism and with my background as TV, or my daily life as a TV producer, I realized we need to produce different pictures. We need to undermine the normality of this, because and then we had a chance to. The only way to do it was basically to be there, to be in the picture, and that was politics. I mean, that's how this started. And of course, we kept going, and we kept this protest movement going for 22 months, and from there, it was a very logical step that in order to prevent this from happening again, you need to be in the party. It's my seat. So this is usually up when we have a meeting. I have my card, so if I insert it here, and then there's a screen that tells who is in attendance. During the meeting, you can ask for an opportunity to speak, ask questions, and then vote on the screen.
Tell me about the voting process. What's happening in this hall?
Legislation proposals come in from the city government usually, and then there's voting, and there's a discussion. And what has been really surprising is how this coalition opposition game works. There's a lot of attention seeking by members, by certain members who know that they can't actually have an influence on the issue as such, but they take every chance to talk a lot, to ask questions, just to get attention. And that has been quite surprising to see how like adults play this as if it was a game.
What was the biggest disappointment in your career?
It's very difficult to name one. I'm not a person who regrets or thinks that should have done differently. You can't change the past, so look forward and see what the future brings. But I remember when I worked in the Ministry of Finance, there was change in the electricity excise and so on. I remember that I made this calculation. I discussed with the people from the Ministry of Environmental Affairs, and at the political decisions that were made, I was like, but it's wrong. I explained to the minister, it's not what we need. And this is the time I realized that the politics, they don't make the best decisions for consumers or people. There are other things at play or other things that are taken into account, and it's not a question of me doing better calculation or building a more complex model or better argumentations or anything like this, that the political decision making works a bit differently.
Is this also happens in the parliament?
Yes, and this, when I worked in the think tank, I also analyzed health policy and so on, and I realized however good I'm in my job, whatever I do, there will be value-based decision made at the end. And now, when I make the decision, at least it's based on the values I consider good or something.
Biggest disappointment in my career? Can't really say. Biggest disappointment. Well, I have taken life as, you know, I've liked what I've been doing in all the spheres where I've been working, and I've had very good colleagues, and I've enjoyed myself. So I'm not really, you know, put myself goals in order to be disappointed if I don't achieve them. So I can't really answer that question.
Okay.
Or maybe I'm a very positive person that I just forget the negative things. That could also be.
Usually, the main reason why females don't go to politics because they were raised as mothers, and they really are afraid that they won't have enough time with their kids, and that's the reason why they don't want to. On one hand, that's a very sexist question because you never ask men how to be a good father.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's still a big problem. Is it possible to be a good politician and a good mother at the same time?
Yes, and there's no right way to be a mother. If you like what you do, whatever it is, And if you're happy, then it carries on to other areas as well. And of course, it's difficult to find a balance, but I feel that often people don't realize that, for example, in politics, I still can control my calendar or agree on times. I don't know, if you're a medical nurse or work in a shop, your day starts at 8 o'clock. If your child is sick or wants to come with you to work, so you can't really accommodate. But it's much easier in the politics. When my 6-year-old says that, oh, I don't want to go to the kindergarten, I want to finish the Harry Potter book. I say, okay, come here, so she can sit here and read her book. So I think it's much easier in some positions than others, and everyone needs to find their way to work around it. But I think it gets easier and easier, especially with fathers having parental benefit or parental leave, this personal right for parental leave, and taking more care of children. It's more about what society thinks about your role as a politician or a mother, and less about the difficulties of finding balance between work and family time.
That's a $1 million question. Well, there's a very good book actually written about, it's not only politics, but it's more like business as well, and taking the top positions. It's by Sheryl Sandberg. It's called Lean In, and one of the issues she points out is that make your partner a real partner. Share your responsibilities regarding children. If it is from the zero like this, then it's not your responsibility, and nobody asks how to be a good mother at the same time. But I try to be with the kids as much as I can and be present for them when I'm there. So I think when they're grown up, then you can ask them whether I was or good enough or not.
I hope my 4 children think I'm a good mom, even though I sometimes don't cook for them warm food every day 3 times like my grandmother and my aunt and my mother. So it is definitely an issue, and that's what I mean when I say it actually starts at home. It starts with how good communication you have with your partner, how much you talk about what one can do, what the other can do, and what does one want to do, and how do you feel fulfilled, how can we share the chores at home, what can the kids do, and definitely that's how you also learn or teach or just with this kind of by the kids experiencing this, I hope also they will be able to make choices not based on like that they feel like they might not be able to live up to it or be good enough. It's just like this good enough issue is very toxic.
I think it's not only about politics, but in every position where you have where you have to put much energy in, and you in a decisive position, or like you're like a leader somehow. They take much of your time, so it's always the question where and how you use your time, and do you have enough time for the kids. So I think that's actually, it's not only about politics, but it's about time. Do I have enough time for my kids? And I guess the solution is just you have to decide, and not that what is important to you, because I guess for me both are important. Somebody's opening the door, I guess. But sorry, both are important, but it's just that I have to decide that there is a time that it doesn't matter what's happening, but I need to be with my kids. So
that you want to be here as well.
Yeah. Lapsed, mis te teete, kas te avate ust? Tibud? aga tee see uks kiiresti lahti, siis ta ei kägise. While I was an activist, I guess I had as little time as I have now. So the situation for me actually haven't changed. Lapsed, ärge käige ka! Kas te lähete õue? Okay, they need to go to the toilet. So go to the toilet.
I don't have an answer to that because I'm probably not a good mother.
Why?
No, actually, you know that also the reason why I dared or why I made this step now is that I'm in a place in my life where my kids are old enough to take care of themselves. They are more or less grown up. So I'm not sure if I could have done it like 10 years ago or 15 years ago. So, but there's always an issue of work-life balance. I mean, being a politician is no different from being a teacher or being a journalist. As a journalist, you also have a very irregular schedule. So, you know, you might be away from home for a week or something. You have to adjust. So it's really a question of equal opportunities and of the equal share of housework and equal share of dedicating time to the children. So I think this is something that is changing also in Estonia.
When we're speaking about women in politics, journalists and media usually mention their appearance. Like they're saying, like, this woman is strong, smart, and beautiful. How appropriate is that?
It's irrelevant, so it shouldn't be there. But from a journalistic point of view, I sometimes understand it. I mean, you want to add color to your stories, and you add color for details, so you describe people. But I think there was a very, very good example, Vilja Kiisler's first interview with Alar Karis. The first 3 or 4 questions were about his beard, his ties, his outfits. So, like, she really followed through with this very typical interview with a female politician. But then, on the other hand, let me tell you an example. I mean, one of the most powerful women in the world, Angela Merkel, who just quit. I mean, if you think of her, you don't think of her as a woman, right? At the same time, she has been extremely conscious about her appearances. When you look at the photos, the so-called family photos of either EU meetings or NATO head of states meetings or whatever, you have a wall of men in dark suits, and then you have one spot of color, and that's her in each and every photo. And this is conscious. She never wears a dark jacket. And that's not an accident. Also, I remember from a working experience, organized a press conference for her, and her team was extremely conscious about the height of the podium where she was speaking, so that her body language would be visible in the camera. If you think of Angela Merkel, you don't think that she has much of body language, but actually they were extremely conscious about that and paid attention to every detail. So she has been very, very skillful, even though this is not a priority in any way, but she's been skillful to wear a pink jacket, a yellow jacket, so that she will be visible and will be present. And that has been part of her image and has left a substantial mark.
Okay.
And I mean, Angela Merkel's collection of jackets is almost a journalistic genre in itself. So, I mean, in this case, when she is in control of it, she controls the agenda about her appearances. I think that's okay.
And you think she wants the journalist to write that she was beautiful?
No, I mean, she probably doesn't care, but men are vain as well. I mean, male politicians. I also, from the same work experience, saw quite a few male prime ministers or male ministers who were extremely vain and were very aware and conscious about all details of their appearances, and they had teams of videographers recording every step and making sure they look good. And so in today's politics, I think there is not much difference anymore.
I also wonder, does Putin follow those rules? He has like high heels.
Oh yes, Putin, Trump. I mean, it's all choreographed and planned.
Sometimes when press or media write about female politics, they mention their appearance, but they never do the same thing with the president. In your opinion, how okay is that?
That's not okay. No, I have had this question a long time, that why is it only mentioned regarding women, and why is it important at all? I mean, this is I don't think it's relevant.
But if a journalist wants to add some colors in their article and they want to compliment you, for example?
Yeah, well, still, I mean, you know, there are, if you look at the positive side, you know, what women have, what is different is that that it is maybe easier to stand out, but then you have to also give the content to this, not only appearances. But I still think it's irrelevant, because when you get older, then your looks also go, but it's the essence that stays.
No, it's not okay. It's not okay because what media writes reflects a lot into society, and when we are used to read something, or we're used that there's a way a certain thing is described or approached, then we take it with us and we bring it to our everyday lives. Media shouldn't call politicians who are female politicians. They're still politicians. Exactly like men who are politicians are just politicians.
I think it should be balanced between sexes. It's not okay to focus on the appearance of female politicians and not of male. I think the content or the statements or the issues that are debated here are much more important to cover than anything else. And it doesn't matter who says it, whether it's a male or a female politician. I think that the quality of the debate in the parliament, in the public in general in Estonia, I think that the level of the debate should be, I don't know, higher, or the quality should be better.
Of course it's not okay. It's you shouldn't in any place describe or like categorize or judge a person according to their appearances or what they wear.
But why?
Because politics is about ideas and visions and changing the reality. And in this context, what I wear or what kind of haircut do I have, it really doesn't matter.
We have to judge female and male politicians equally. I don't remember that anybody has discussed, I don't know, politicians' socks or ties or watches, but there was a big fuss when I bought my first Christian Dior purse. It was my first expensive purse, and I earned my money, and I was 50 years old, and I was criticized. And I don't think it's fair. I think everybody has to be criticized because of political positions, because of what they say, because of what they do. But nobody should be criticized upon their nationality, gender, appearances. We should not criticize their families, and we should not touch the families, because families are not part of politicians' life. They're part of politicians' life, but they're not part of politics. So smart people, and I would say that mature democracies, criticize politicians for their views. But if we start looking at appearances, I don't know, dresses, it shows that there is a long way to go before we become a mature democracy.
They don't even know how to talk about men's clothes, for example. They don't know what a good suit is, unfortunately. Yes.
But is it okay?
No, I don't think it's okay. I don't think it's okay to discuss only the appearance in any kind of... If you want to talk about policies, you want to talk about policies. Of course, I think appearance is also... it is there. I mean, you only get a chance to make one first impression, as they say, and I think, of course, our appearance matters. But talking about it only when it comes to female politicians, that's just sexism.
Thank you, Madeleine, again.
Okay.
Okay.
Good. It wasn't great.
Amazing.
Thank you very much for your
Thank
time.
you.
Yes.
Очень приятно, это было очень здорово.
Было приятно познакомиться.
I wish that every young person will find something that interests him or her, something that makes you learn, want to try harder, an area or issue that you want to make a change in. And if you have this internal drive, anything is possible.
I do wish that you do know that you are enough, that you are perfect, and that you take time to look inside, and that's where you have all the answers.
I wish more empathy and caring about each other in everyday situations, and not only in moments of crisis.
I'd like to wish Estonian young people to be open-minded, to see the world much more widely than only Tallinn, Tartu or Estonia. Look at the map. We are periphery of Europe. The world is much better. So be interested in things that happen outside your comfort zone. Be brave to look at the world much more widely than only Estonia, and do not be silent if you see that something is going wrong. And please participate in politics. If you do not want to become politicians, it's your obligation to participate in elections. Because if you do not make the choices, my generation will do. And I'm not sure that my generation will make the best choices for you. So be active, don't be silent, all the best.
Just go for it. I mean, you are smart enough, you are courageous enough, you have great ideas, you have equal right to be part of the conversation, to be part of the decision making. Go for it.
I wish you to have a free mind and to have the strength to bring your ideas into life, not just to talk about them.